Hello, welcome to DIY Astro. Today we are doing an unboxing and initial impressions review of the Skyguider Pro by iOptron. This has been kindly loaned to me by First Light Optics and Icarus Imaging. So thank you guys for loaning me this to review, and I really appreciate it because it means I can actually do some proper deep sky imaging now, which I've been itching to do for quite some time. What I want to do is also compare it to the Star Adventure mount that I've owned previously, and I'll put a link up in the corner to that so you can check out that video if you'd like to. So I'll be drawing comparisons between the two as I go along. With no further ado, let's unbox it. In fact, I've got a slight confession to make in that this isn't the first time I've opened this. I did try and do this video yesterday, and my Fuji X-T100, despite doing lots of audio checks, it was just white noise when I played it back. So I'm giving it one last chance, mainly because my GoPro's battery is flat, so I was going to use that instead. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to have to go and get a different camera. It's expensive doing this reviewing business. So we've got a quick start guide, and it's got an inventory of what's in the actual package, and also lots of pictures and different configurations that you can have the mount in. I'll just quickly run through what's included in the package. So we've got the mount already in the vinyl carry case. We've got a counterweight bar, which is surprisingly thick, really. It looks about as thick as what you'd get on like a Skywatch HEQ5 or something, but it's on a star tracker. A very sturdy looking counterweight bar with a counterweight, obviously, and I think that weighs 1.35 kilograms. It's all very tightly packaged. There we go. We've got a Vixen mounting plate there, a declination bracket that attaches to the right ascension axis of the mount, but there's the declination bracket portion which you can twist round, but you can attach like ball heads to that to give you more leeway of where you're pointing your camera. And we've got some cables. One's a micro USB, and one is for a little surprise I got, because First Light Optics actually sent me out the Eyepieces version of the Skyguider Pro, and that took me by surprise, I'll be honest. And that's great. I mean, it's a bit of a learning curve. You can use software to sort of more accurately position Polaris, so you get much more accurate polar alignment, and it also enables you to polar line if you can't see Polaris, if it's obscured. I can imagine that being quite useful if you're in the southern hemisphere, because obviously it's a bit more involved polar aligning in the southern hemisphere compared to just, we're quite lucky in the northern hemisphere because polar alignment is pretty much bang on Polaris. Anyway, so yeah, we get a charging cable because it doesn't have AA batteries like the Star Adventure I've reviewed previously. This has got a built-in lithium ion battery which you can just charge, so there's no worries about replacing batteries, disposable batteries. You just charge up via USB using a cable and your laptop, and I think you can run the mount whilst it's charging from your laptop as well. So you can be powering the mount and the Eyepolar from your laptop. It does take away a little bit from the portability of the setup, because I think the idea of a star tracker is that you can just whip it out, plonk it down quickly, roughly polar align. But this is actually quite a serious bit of kit. It's got auto guiding capabilities, so you can use it as a serious imaging rig with auto guiding, laptop, plate solving for polar aligning, etc, etc. So the mount is kind of what you want it to be. It can be a grab and go if you don't get the Eyepolar version, or if you want it to be a more serious imaging rig, you can have the Eyepolar for more accurate polar alignment, thus longer exposures, and you can go full into it with the auto guiding port, which I'll touch on in a bit. They also sent me the recommended tripod to go with it, so we'll pop that out as well. spreader plate. Quite often these things are aluminium nowadays on the lightweight mounts, but it's quite a sturdy looking steel mount. So just pop that spreader tray on. It kind of should click into place. It's not so easy actually. Ooh. There we go. So we've got that. Let's take a look at the mount inside this final carry case. So we've got a little carry handle there, iOptron logos both sides, and inside we have the main item itself. Give you a close look at that. This is in two parts. We've got the out azimuth wedge there, so you want to set that. It's got degrees readings there, and a locking lever and an adjustment screw. So here in England I want to set that to 52 degrees, so I'll whiz that round. If I can see, because I'm not wearing my glasses for some reason. There we go, and I'll just lock that off there. We've also got a bubble level there for getting everything level on the tripod, and we can simply just slide that on to there like so. Do up that nut, and then that sits on the tripod. Now this bit here is the RA axis, and this ring round it is the clutch to tighten, lock that down. If you've got a very light, say mirrorless camera and a 50mm lens, it's very light, you can just put a ball head on there and have the very lightweight setup. But I like to have everything really well balanced, so I'm going to use the counterweight kit. So we need to attach the counterweight kit declination bracket to this area here. So what I'll do is I'll remove this plate, and I'll come to the Eyepolar bit in a minute. This is the bracket, so that's going to go, if I spin that round, put that down just a second. Like, oh no, give me a second. There's lots of screwing and unscrewing involved with this. So we're going to screw that on there. Just one bolt at the bottom, just hooks over. Ah, I've left my plug in for the polar scope, so I'll probably just, yeah, anyway, assume that I've just taken that plug out of the middle. What I'm going to go on to now is the Eyepolar that I was quite frankly shocked about yesterday. I was just scratching my head for a second, wondering what was going on. I was looking at this plate at the back thinking, what on earth? But then it all clicked together and I realised they'd sent me the Eyepolar version. So there's a port there for connecting it to your laptop using the provided cable, and then it's a case of going on the iOptron site and downloading the software, which I've already done. I did that last night, and then as said, it allows you to do a more accurate polar alignment. I'm going to remove this bolt here it comes with that big chunky bolt there, but what I want to do is I want to replace that with a counterweight shaft. So counterweight shaft will go on there like so. I'll just do that down here. All very sturdy stuff so far. Feels very well made. very surprised by how thick the counterweight bar is, and I'll put that weight at the top so it's not putting any, so it reduces the amount of stress on the mount. So what I want to do now is, iOptron supply they don't supply it with a kit, but you can buy separately a ball head adapter, but I've got a cheaper version from Amazon. If I grab it, it looks very similar to the Optron one you can get for this, but this is a newer ball head, which I think will do the job, and I'll provide links to things down below. Let's hold that up so you can see. Now, unfortunately, I'm filming with the camera I intend to use with this, which is the Fujifilm X-T100. So I can't, what I'd normally do is put the camera there and then turn this to the side. Once it's on a tripod, I'd turn that to the side and I'd balance this counterweight along until the camera and the counterweight were equally balanced and it's not going down one end or the other, and then I'd lock it all off. But I can't show you that at the moment because I'm obviously filming with the camera that I want to use with this. Yeah, I could switch to the GoPro once it's charged maybe. So let's get this on the tripod and I'll just show you what it looks like when it's all set up on the tripod. I will draw some comparisons to the Star Adventure in a moment. Right, there we have it. Let's go have a look at the controls and things and draw some comparisons to its competitor, which is the Star Adventure mount. First of all, cost. This Skyguider Pro package, excluding the tripod, so all this bit up here, apart from the ball head, costs £375. The equivalent for the, I'm just going to refer to it as the SA mount to be short. The equivalent for the SA mount is £269, so this is roughly £100 more. I'll let you figure that out in your own currency if you're not from here. So there is a cost difference. Secondly, this is more compact but still on paper retaining the same payload capacity, and the weight of the head is very similar to the SA mount. I think they're both around about the 1 kilogram mark. Other similarities are that they both have a polar scope built into the main body, which isn't obscured by the declination bracket. With both mounts you can have the bracket on and still polar align. And the tracking modes are very similar between the two, but the method of getting to the tracking mode is slightly different. On the Star Adventure, you've got a dial that's very easy to turn, and you can select solar, lunar, sidereal tracking, that kind of thing. On here, you've got an on-off switch there, and you've got little LEDs at the top, and you press this middle button to skip between solar tracking, lunar tracking, off sidereal, which is basically, I think the idea for that is if you want to take a landscape shot with the foreground and the night sky at the same time, it's kind of a compromise between the foreground not blowing out and the night sky not blowing out. But my immediate thought is you're just much better off tracking for your shot of the sky to get nice round stars and taking a very still foreground picture and then merging them, blending them in something like Photoshop. The next mode there is sidereal tracking, and if you hold down the button it flicks over to this S, which is for southern hemisphere, and it's flashing now. So if I press it again, hello, I think selecting the southern hemisphere is a little bit easier on the Star Adventure. I think it's just like a little toggle switch. Here you have to kind of hold down until it's flashing, and then I think, let me try holding it again. I did this okay yesterday. Anyway, you can select southern hemisphere on here. I'm obviously just incompetent. Other comparisons, let's see. The out azimuth wedge on the Star Adventure is a bit bigger. I know there's a William Optics upgrade for both the iOptron and the Skywatcher star trackers, which is a lot better than both of them, but obviously that's kind of extra money, so it's something you need to think about really, whether you want to throw even more money at the mount. But it certainly looks really lovely. I think they do a counterweight extension bar as well, so there's lots of accessories for these star trackers that you can purchase afterwards. I'll probably go to a shot of the setup I'm going to be using outside under the night sky with the camera aboard, so I'll film that on the GoPro and show you round this setup with everything aboard how I want it to use under the stars. So we'll switch to that now. Okay, so I've switched to the GoPro and moved locations to the kitchen where the lighting is a little bit better, just to show you the setup, how it's going to look when I'm using it for first light under the stars. So as mentioned, I'm using a Fujifilm X-T100, and that's an entry-level mirrorless camera with an APS-C size sensor, 1.5 times crop sensor. And I'm kind of trialing this camera at the moment because I heard on the grapevine that the Fuji cameras have quite a weak IR filter, so I'm hoping it will let some nice lovely nebulae through without having to sort of modify the camera like I do in the past with Canon cameras. And I'll also pick up another Canon camera and do a side-by-side stock camera comparison to see if there's any real difference between cameras that people typically use when starting out in astrophotography, as in the Canon camera, and this Fuji. Be interesting to see. I'm using a vintage Super Takumar lens, which is a Sai Pentax, and these have got a good reputation for cheap astrophotography lenses. This one's 135mm f3, and I tend to sort of stop it down to f4 to give slightly sharper stars in the corner, and f4 is still kind of bright enough in a light polluted sky, to be honest. I do need to work in a light pollution filter somewhere in the imaging train to sort of get around the light pollution, but for now this is what I've got. And to get around the dew, I'm using a Kuwu lens heater. It's giving the lens a nice hug at the moment. If we follow that down, that's being powered by a Getiu power brick. And I chose this one because you can see through that netting, it's got like a LED display to let you know how much power is left, and the last thing you want is that to run out and your lens to mist over when you're taking a run of images. Talking of a run of images, I've got a trigger release. You can connect the trigger release to the mount, but I've got it from the camera going to just like the ball head being a Newer ball head, I've got a Newer interferometer which takes control of how many exposures I take, how long between each exposure, and how long the exposures are. So that takes control of the imaging run once I program that, and then you can just stack them in Deep Sky Stacker to get a stacked image at the end. Now, I did miss some things out earlier, and that was the ports on this mount. Similar ports to the Star Adventurer in that you've got ST4 guide port, and that's really useful if you want to get longer exposures with longer lenses or small telescopes, and you're finding that you're getting trailing. You can attach a auto guider and little guide scope to take care of keeping on target on a guide star to keep everything nice and round and reduce any movement and sharpness in your images. Next along, we've got a snap port for the trigger release, but I'm using one on the camera, and USB charging, because this is the lithium-ion battery as mentioned earlier, so that you just charge that up via USB. And then HBX there is for plugging in a hand controller, and this isn't a go-to mount, so you're not going to get go-to functionality out of it, but you can do basic commands like slowing, and I believe the iOptron hand controller has a position for Polaris on the LCD screen, so you can use it for that if you've got one handy, but I wouldn't probably go and buy one specifically for this mount because you can just download an app on your phone to look at the position of Polaris. And obviously you don't need that at all if you've got the iPolar version like I've been kindly loaned here. So yeah, what have I missed? Is that everything? Yeah, I've extended the tripod legs out just to show you what that looks like. So if I go down here and pan up, that is the setup. So first light as soon as it's clear. If you want to join me and see how that goes, please hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you get my next video to see how we go with this under the stars. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you on the next video.